Vic Edelbrock. Welcome to the Edelbrock Toy Barn, as it is called. And this is the area where we show our cars in the Vic's garage across the street. But these cars here are race cars, vintage race cars and stuff that we're working on all the time. So therefore, they're here the majority of the time. And we want to kind of walk you through and show you how our relationship with VP is an excellent one, and their fuel is very good for us. It's consistent and it runs well, and we can count on it. All these engines in the race cars are very high compression, and you certainly don't want to have a problem with that. You're also in a building here where behind, or to my left here, is our dynamometer systems. We have 3 dynamometers, engine dynamometers, and of course we use all VP fuel in that, and we use the VP 100 and our street engines and high performance engines and such that are used on the street, so we can tell the customer exactly what to do, how to use it, and what gains he can get from it by increasing boost with our superchargers or increasing the lead. Okay, now into a little vintage race cars. And of course, the top of the list would be my daughter's car that she drives, Christy. It's a GT 350, and it's prepared by Mike Eddy, the person that takes care of all my cars, and he's a little partial to Ford, so he really loves to work on those. That's all right. I've got a Corvette over there, and he does a good job on it also. But in any case, this is a car that is exactly the way it was raced back in the mid-60s. And it's got a 289 plus 30,000 engine in it, which is by the rules we're supposed to run, and the type of manifold that was used in those days, and so it runs in a class against my Corvette, 63 Corvette over there, other Shelbys, which there's a lot of them, Cobras, stuff like that, and we really have a lot of fun. And she's a very lucky girl to be able to drive this. Okay, over here is a car that I drive, and this is a Boss 302 1969 Trans Am Mustang, and it was prepared by Ford in they call the Skunk Works, and down in the basement somewhere in Detroit. And they prepared 6 cars to get into the Trans Am racing. The 3 cars, this car and 2 others, were prepared for Bud Moore, who was of NASCAR fame. And the driver of this car was George Fulmer, and the other car was Parnelli Jones, and the third car was a backup car. So these guys had a lot of fun, and it was a great find to obtain this car with the history that it had. There's things in here like you notice the little white specks over the black paint. Well, that was done to hide the welding, and it's all throughout the car. The people at Trans Am said, okay, you can do this in 1969, but don't do it in 1970 and 71, or we'll not let you run. So those were the little things that were done to these cars that kind of make them a little better or whatever, in any way they could. So it was a lot of, as Junior Johnson once said for NASCAR, he'd rather cheat and not get caught than win. And I'm sure a lot of other people have that same theory. But this is a fun car to drive. I drive it, and we'll be going this year to Quebec, Canada, and run on a famous racetrack 140 miles out of Montreal. And we have a group, that's a special group out of Southern California, with all legal cars and all real cars, and it's really a lot of fun. Added to this is the infamous Smokey unit car, and this was the one that was made for the FIA records, and it did achieve all that. But then, of course, when Smokey tried to run it in Trans Am, he was politely told to go home, and many times. But it was hard to turn Smokey away because he was very stubborn. But he did get it into a deal where they ran the 24-hour at Daytona, and they ran the race at Sebring. The race at Daytona, the driver was Bobby Unser Sr. and Lloyd Ruby. They started the race in Bobby Unser was driving, and he came in and for the normal pit stop and changed, and Lloyd Ruby got in it and went out, and he noticed that the oil pressure was not quite where it should be, and that it was something going to happen if he continued to race it. So he just pulls it in and he says, I got to get out, my stomach's upset, I ate the wrong breakfast. Unser, you'll have to get back in the car. So Unser gets back in the car, goes out about 3 laps and sees it going like the oil pressure going like this, and boom, blows the engine up. And Lloyd Ruby didn't have to be in the car when it happened. So those are the things that kind of went on. But it's a very infamous car. There isn't anything that stock that fits it, because it's been changed from here to there and all the way to the bottom. But great car to have, and one lucky daughter, Christy, gets to drive it. So now this is the car that I told you that I drive, and it's a '63 Corvette, and this was built by Zora in the basement of the St. Louis factory, Corvette factory, and he was told that Chevrolet could not go racing because they were under investigation with the government on antitrust. And so he was the type of person that you didn't tell him what to do and what not to do. So he had just designed the Stingray, and he wanted to have a good showing at the race at Riverside, which was the Times Grand Prix every October 15th. And so he prepared these cars, and he prepared 4 of them. He actually built 6, but 4 were going to Riverside. First one, this was the one that Bob Bondurant drove for Washburn Chevrolet. He drove a '59. So when this came out, of course, he drove it. So he picked this car up at St. Louis along with Davey McDonald, who got unfortunately killed at Indy, and Jerry Grant, who was an Indy driver, picked up the 3rd car. 4th car, Mickey Thompson bought and had it flown to California, and a guy named Doug Hooper drove it. So they went to the racetrack. They didn't have a lot of time to prepare the cars because they only had like a week or so when they got out there to put the roll bar in and all that. And as they got to Riverside, Zora looks up, and here comes Carroll Shelby, Ken Miles, a driver from England that Carroll used, and a Cobra. He'd never seen a Cobra before, so he looked at the Cobra, he looked at the Corvette. There's 1,000 pounds difference in weight, and Zora knew exactly what he had to do, and that was to go home and start on the Grand Sport, which he did. But in the meantime, they had to run the race, and fortunately for Corvette and Zora, the Cobra broke, and so did 3 of the 4 cars that were there, the Corvette. But the one that won was the one that Mickey had flown back, and this Doug Hooper had driven. So Zora got his wish, won his race, and did his thing. So it's a great car. It's raced out in California for, like through the mid-60s, 67, and then went to Bonneville. Somebody cut the top off, and it went 200 miles an hour. You know, people didn't think much of fiberglass cars in those days. They didn't think that any of this stuff was going to happen, so they didn't take very good care of it. And it was found in somebody's backyard in Santa Barbara, and the only thing they could identify was the frame. That they knew, the man that took care of it, Bob Jonig, knew that it was the car, and then started putting it back together, and I bought it from him and finished it. So here you've seen an array of cars that are in the toy barn, as we call it. Again, it's working with the good people at VP and having the right fuel and doing the right thing, so that we can run in these cars the way we run them and make sure that we're not going to have any problem. That's very important to you. So whether you're running the VP 100 or the other racing fuels, which should be only used at racetracks, not on the street, you'll get the type of quality that you need for the performance that you want.